What are some of the best coffees in the world? What's involved in the process from seed to cup? And why would you freeze coffee? If you'd like to find out, then you're in the right place. Welcome to Between Views. I'm your host, Alec Koski. This podcast aims to cast light on and connect you with inspirational people, identify them as potential mentors in your journey, and share their stories and wisdom with the world, all the while learning about early business and its dynamics. In this episode, we converse with Chris Edden about his ideas on business, his favourite coffees, and some unique ideas that he employs in his workplace. We hope you enjoy. And just before we start, Chris and I have actually teamed up to give all Between Views listeners a 10% discount on coffee from Josie Coffee. On their online store, you'll just need to use the code BETWEENVIEWS to get yourself 10% off some delicious, tasty beans. We hope you enjoy. All right, well, since we're talking about the mod bar, why don't we talk about coffee? What's your favourite type of coffee? Do you have one that stands out above all? I remember I had.
Are you talking about a brewing method or an actual coffee?
Let's talk about an actual coffee and then your favourite brewing method as well.
I think there's a lot of favourite coffees I've had. We've bought a lot of exotic coffees here.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of cool stuff. Like we've had Riverdale Geisha farm in India. Their recent harvest of that has been really good, and that's special to us, I guess, because we buy a lot of coffee from them. And Greg and I have both visited there. So yeah, that coffee's cool. But we've had all sorts of stuff. Yeah, just tons of really cool geishas and stuff. Colombian geishas. I don't know. So many.
It's one of the more renowned coffees, isn't it? Colombian Geisha.
Yeah. I mean, Geisha is a varietal of coffee, which is generally very popular as an exotic varietal. But we've had some bangers. Yeah, the Riverdale Geisha was really good. But all sorts of crazy stuff. But yeah, some exceptional Ethiopian coffees. Just, I don't know, there's so many. I've got them all on the like heaps of cool frozen coffees downstairs. You keep
your coffee frozen?
Just for some of for the exotics, we have them on bar. I think there's 18 coffees in there that customers can order.
Why would someone freeze coffee?
It'll just allow the coffee to be kind of frozen in time, really. So you can have that coffee and peak it. So you might, with those coffees, we'd say rest for 6 weeks, and then we'd freeze down that coffee so it's kind of stopped in time and it's not going to get any worse or any better. And then we would dose that out into small doses and then, pull it out of the freezer and brew it. And they grind really uniformly.
When it's frozen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I actually noticed that when I'd frozen coffee before, the grind came out way nicer.
Yeah. And then, you can just brew that coffee rather than, because, if you've got all these coffees, some of those coffees might be 18 months old. You can't keep that coffee non-frozen for that long. It'll be horrible by then. So it allows us to have more of like a wine list, I guess.
Okay.
But I feel like for me, my favourite coffees as a general, I really like washed Colombian coffees.
Yeah.
I've come to like those coffees more over time, and washed coffees, I probably appreciate them more. I used to really be into crazy naturals, but I feel like I've just got more into washed Colombian coffees, and I'm not into big crazy coffees as much as I was. So,
okay.
Yeah, but I also love a good flat white. I have a flat white every morning at home, so I'm not like a snob that will only drink espresso or filter. I really like flat white.
Yeah, well, there's something to be said about milk-based coffees, right? It's a whole nother drink. I went through this phase where I got very only into black coffee, and I was like, why would you put milk in it? The coffee tastes great anyway if it's good coffee and you brew it right.
Yeah.
But then I realized, no, there's things that happen when you add milk to coffee. It becomes a whole other drink. It's a different type of coffee beverage.
Yeah, we don't. We're into coffee, but we don't be dickheads about it and look down at people like, you drink decaf. Right?
No.
People like death before decaf and stuff. We're not into
death before decaf.
No, that's just stupid. Or you have caramel in your coffee, so you're a lesser person. If you want caramel, cool man, it's 50 cents. And you can take it. I don't care.
Yeah.
You like what you like, and everyone's on their coffee journey. Not everyone not everyone starts drinking double espressos. No one does.
No.
Um,
But they all almost naturally end up there.
if you get into coffee, yeah. So but not everyone has to be into coffee. Like some people, it's just a part of their day to come and get a flat white with 1 sugar or whatever.
Yeah.
And that will be as much as they'll get into coffee in their whole life. But they're no worse of a person for it. Like if you want to get into coffee as a thing, that's cool, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
So.
It's that old thing where you do your own thing and don't force it on anyone else.
No. If you want to drink it. But
yeah,
exactly.
One thing that I thought would be really interesting for people listening, because I always found that when I started talking about this after learning about it, people would just like pay attention straight away. Whenever I started talking about the process of coffee, from like where it comes from to roasting it to going to the cup, there's such an amazing amount of things that have to happen for that cup to taste good. Yep. And I always found that myself to be really impressive.
Yep.
But when you tell people about it, they are just like, whoa, I didn't realize there's so much to it. So I guess without going overly deep into it, would you be able to give us a bit of a snapshot of what it looks like getting a bean from where it is born to your cup?
Yeah, well, so coffee's grown on a tree, and it's not a quick process. It's on the tree for some time, and where the times of harvest will be dependent on where it is around the world. But generally, coffee's grown around the equator belt, and once it's ripened, it'll be picked. Depends on whether it's like mechanically picked or hand picked. In some areas like Brazil and that, it's much more common to be mechanically strip picked.
Because it's such a large quantity.
Yeah, and a lot of their farms they're set up for that, so they can get machines and that in there. But for example, in India, the farm we buy from, everything's hand picked. The terrain is just too rugged to be able to.
Usually grown on quite steep hills, from
can
what
be,
I
yeah.
understand.
Yeah, Riverdale's pretty steep, so they'll pick it. Based on certain cherry colour. They want to pick it. Yeah, at certain levels. The more uniform that cherry colour is, the better the coffee's going to be, and more uniform. If you're just, they call it like strip picking. So if you just like grab the tree and just go like boom and just rip everything off, which they will in more commercial style things, your quality of coffee is going to be like this, because there's underripes, overripes.
Oh yeah.
So there, they'll pick it based on colour, and then that coffee will get either processed as a natural, where it's fermented in its own skin in the cherry, or it'll be done as a washed. Okay. And there can be different levels of processing and fermentation in between. There may be some like anaerobic fermentation or whatever in between, but as a simple thing as either washed or natural.
Yep.
So for washed, they'll get it'll go through a pulper. It'll kind of rip all the flesh and skin and sticky stuff off the cherry, and then it'll go into a tank and it'll get fermented for a period of time, and then it'll go and get dried. So there's various ways around the world that they dry it. Either on raised beds or just on concrete patios, or they can mechanically dry it in big machines. But at Riverdale, they dry everything on raised beds, which are just kind of like a bed probably a similar width to this, and they can be quite long, and they'll just sit the coffee on it, and then it'll get turned often throughout the day to make sure it's all even.
Yep.
And it depends on how long it gets dried for, maybe up to a couple of weeks. And then they'll seal that coffee up, and then it'll have to go to the mill, and the mill will do further processing to remove other things off the coffee, the outer skins and things like that, and then it'll be ready for export, and then it'll get sealed up in bags and weighed, and sent to the port, and then it'll come out to us, and then and then roasted, which is just a whole other thing. Like there's so many, you kind of got the distinct things of like processing at the farm, at the mill, then into the roastery, then brewing.
What's a typical roast look like?
For us, they're about 10 minutes for the blends. We now have a Loring 15 kilo roaster, which is sort of like an air roaster to a degree.
Yeah, and this is like the Maserati of roasters, isn't it? The Loring?
Lorings are cool. Yeah, they're out of the US. They're very big now. Very big in specialty coffee. Recirculating burner, so it won't produce any smoke or smell, which is really cool. They're better on gas because they recirculate, and just really controllable. Greg and Steve, who work here in the roastery, went pretty nuts with it and got it really dialed in, and Greg has went mental with it to get it to perform how we want, and it has automation and stuff, so we can set profiles and we'll just repeat them. So
uniform coffee.
Yeah, it's basically just get the coffee in, punch the heat into it, and then just continue to cook it well from outside to inside. Managing the coffee and just how the heat is applied. Every coffee's different, and the approach required to roasting them properly. So and then there's single origins as well, which we'll generally roast a little bit lighter than the blends. So it's just it's a whole thing. And then it's getting those coffees out, tasting them, and seeing where they're at and what we want from them, and then it'll be putting that feedback back into the roasting to modify them. It's a big part of being a good roaster is roasting and then cupping the coffees for quality control, and then saying it tastes like this, but I want it to taste like that. I need to do this. So this coffee might need a bit more acidity, or it's a little bit heavy. Okay, well we might reduce the time a bit, or it's a little bit hollow, might need a bit more heat through this part of the roast. So I'm not involved in roasting anymore. I don't do any of the roasting, but I most certainly did. Once I've got the Loring, I don't do any roasting now. Steve and Greg do all the production roasting. Right. So
you stepped aside from roasting.
Yeah, I used to do all the roasting, and then I used to do like a lot of the single origins and exotic coffees on the smaller Probat. But since we've had the Loring, and there's 2 full-time staff in the roastery, they handle all of the production roasting. So, and I have a part in the quality control, but I don't do any of the roasting now.
Okay, so that's something where you've started to decide, all right, I need to reshift focus, do something else for the business, and you're taking control over certain other parts, leaving it to people who you trust. A lot of trust in business, giving that job to someone who you know can do it, and then leaving them to it. I'm really interested in this because I think one day I'd like to go into business, and I guess I'm here to learn from you in a way, and I'd love other people to learn too. So when you first started, what would you say are some things that you just wish that you knew, that like from the get-go? Like if you could give people who are starting up a business in general some advice, what would you say to them?
I think that you have to learn the lessons along the way. Like your mistakes will shape your future. Like you just don't know what you don't know. But I don't know if I have any specific golden nuggets, but I think like it's important that like in any business, you must look after the business side of things is important. So as much as some people be like, you might, if you want to be a builder or whatever you want to do, if you don't have a business side of it or have people to help you with the business side, you're not going to survive. You have to look after, you have to look after the business side of things, being like the accounting and taxes and all of that sort of stuff. That's important. And if you don't, you'll get eaten alive, if you're not on top of that. But I always try and have good customer service and be pretty organized. I have a planner on my phone of everything I need to get done, which I do every day. And, every day I'm handling all of the accounting stuff and rostering things and stuff with the cafe. But you have to be organized. If you're not organized, it's pretty difficult to be in business.
How do you stay organized?
Having a calendar. Planning everything, having to-do lists of everything that needs to get done. And it's the same downstairs in the cafes and in the roastery. They have lists of stuff that need to get done. And if they're on that list, they get done. I think that that's what's really important, is just making sure I have a list of stuff that I need to do and gets done every week. and every day, and then I'll put things in my calendar that need to get done that day. So I think just being organised is absolute key.
Okay, so being on top of things, being organised, having your lists, and I guess being integral once you write something down, making sure that it's done, just chipping away until they're all done.
Yeah, and just being on top of that, and that's just super important. And like customer service, when people email you and stuff, you just being on top of things, getting back to people.
Yeah. What about, I'm just about to step into a more of like a manager role in one of my career paths, and one thing I've really admired about people is they always have different ways of managing people. What would you say is your tactic when it comes to having people around you in your business? What's your angle on that?
I definitely like to try and have a good work environment. I mean, I think everyone wants to have a good work environment, but coming from sort of corporate world, not corporate, but like government employed world, generally those places are not particularly good to work. They have a lot of bureaucracy and infighting and just stuff like that, and a lot of employees that I think are just, they're not particularly good. They work for the government and they know that they can't kind of get sacked, so there's a lot of poor work performance. So I think that I only try and employ people that are good, which is, always beneficial where possible, but things do happen. But I try my best to look after the staff as much as possible. I guess I kind of have the philosophy that if you look after your staff, they'll look after you.
How do you look after them?
Just trying to accommodate their needs as much as possible, with financial needs, or just trying to accommodate rostering and stuff like that. Make it a pretty fun workplace to be in as much as possible. We're not super rigid on like music or uniform or things, and just how they can kind of act in the cafes as well. We allow people to be themselves. It's not, you don't have to have cookie cutter service, and and I guess I try my best to give people worth, that if they're doing a good job, try and tell them as much as possible. I could probably do it more, but just appreciate people when they do, when they are doing good things.
So a lot of like verbal confirmation and letting people come to work as they are in a way, and that probably adds a lot of variety to your culture at work anyway, by letting people be themselves, right?
We have a pretty diverse workforce. But just trying to have fun. And I guess that I, in the cafes and the roastery especially, like I sort of say, when there's work to be done, especially in the start of the week here in the roastery, it's busy. Get in and I want the work done. But once the work's kind of done, I'm not too fast. Like, the boys will be up to whatever, like just creating memes or just all sorts of stuff. But as long as like kind of the work gets done and the roastery's clean and we're on top of stuff, I'm not super concerned. I'm not like, what are you doing sitting around? Like,
got you.
Your lunch break ended 2 minutes ago. Like I don't do that.
Okay.
If someone needs their nose pulled and they're being lazy or whatever, they will get their nose pulled. But try and keep it casual as much as possible.
Yeah. So your expectation essentially is once the work's done, like that's a must for you. You have your non-negotiable. Absolutely, the work needs to be done. As soon as that's done, we can play around a bit. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, same as in the cafes, I don't have an issue like if the cafe staff are kind of standing around talking, if it's quiet and the jobs are done. But I'll get a bit more cranky if like the cafe staff are standing around doing nothing and there's all jobs to do. I'll be like, what are you doing? But if they're on top of stuff and it's quiet, I don't care. Or like if they, they get their phone out and do some things, whatever. I'm not like, put your phones in the drawer, like.
Yeah. So you don't kind of like to be too overarching.
Nah. Like I said, there's standards and the staff know that like, don't take me for a fool. But I try and not go too crazy because, everyone's human and it's got to be, there's got to be a level of fun and stuff at work, because if you're just being a dick all the time, they're not going to hang around.
Yeah.
Especially in the current workforce. Like, if you're not a good employer, people will find somewhere better pretty quick. So.
Yeah, so it's you kind of want people to be happy. Well, you do want people to be happy, so you find ways to let them enjoy themselves at work.
Yeah, I mean, you spend a lot of time at work.
You do.
Especially, for the full-time guys here, they're in here 4 to 5 days a week. So, yeah, they've got to have a balance. And, I mean, Greg now, Greg and Steve are both on kind of flexible rosters, I guess, where Greg does Monday to Thursday, where he does more hours earlier in the week. And that was something that, he kind of brought to me as like a little bit of a joking sort of thing. And I was like, well, bring something to me, and if you can show that it's going to work, I'm happy to accommodate it. That keeps him happier and his wife happier and works for their family. So, it's not a huge thing to not have him there for that day. The work's getting done. If it, in turn, keeps him happier and works better for his life, he'll probably be more productive at work. On
the days that he's here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Just trying to make it a good environment that allows people to kind of thrive and want to work here and continue to work here, because retaining staff is a big thing.
Yeah. So where did you learn about all this?
I don't know.
Purely experience?
Yeah, I think so.
So you went down the experiential route where you just kind of like picked it up and let it unfold and took it as it came.
Yeah, I don't have any training in management or anything. Like I said, I was in the police for 10 years, but I done like a little bit of supervising, but I wasn't a supervisor. But yeah, I think, I'm generally pretty good. I'm pretty good at telling people what to do. That's what I've done for a job for 10 years.
Oh, yeah, true.
No, I don't know. I guess that I am probably like a natural leader. I'm always happy to take charge of situations. But yeah, it's just stuff that I've learned and things that kind of work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Learn from your mistakes as much as possible. So
apart from the monetary help from having that job in the police, did that time help you at all with this? Do you find any of those skills from there? Maybe,
it definitely has sort of shaped me to be the person I am. It's a different world in emergency services and dealing in that world and that life. You certainly see some things that you can't unsee. But I guess it makes me appreciate what I have now in the way of I don't do shift work. I have weekends off and I work like 7 Christmas days straight and stuff like that. And I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old now, so it's nice not to be working shift work. And I'm glad I don't do that anymore. But I definitely I think in those roles you have to be a good communicator. I was in highway patrol, so I was always dealing with people on the roadside in difficult confronting situations, effectively selling a product that no one wants to buy.
True.
So just I guess learning how to talk to people and communicate with people is important. But I like to think that I was pretty similar in that role and that world to what I am now. I was pretty casual. I'd always be sort of cracking jokes with people in certain situations, not really when I'm giving them a ticket, but certainly at RBT and things I'd be pretty always be trying friendly and have a laugh with people when you can. Other times it certainly doesn't permit.
Yeah, of course. Anytime that you get pulled over by the police, it's always like so refreshing when they turn up and they're like, "Hello, how you going?"
Yeah,
you're doing the wrong thing, but it's way nicer of an experience, like because you know you messed up, kind of thing. Like,
but there's certainly some that you're confronted with situations, in doing that in highway patrol where you almost always work on your own. Often out on the freeway and stuff, and you're stopping cars doing God knows what, and they're up to God knows what, and you just don't know what you're going to come across. You can just 99% of the time it's fine, and the person, okay, yeah, cool, no worries, I was doing the wrong thing. But some people, there's other factors at play, and you can just be immediately met with insane hostility, and you're basically being verbally attacked and put on the spot, and you can't just someone starts abusing you and you can just abuse them back. Really, everything's recorded and you're accountable to things, and things may well go to court, and you don't want to be in court playing the in-car video and you're swearing at people and carrying on. So like I said, you have to learn to be a good communicator and act fast and think fast. So I guess that I've learned skills from that.
So learn some quick thinking and communication skills from policing.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I think this is the perfect segue actually. I find it very ironic that one of your favourite passions is street cars and drift cars, because probably for many years you actually were the person potentially pulling people over for street cars and drift cars. And I was wondering Thank you for listening to part 2 of our interview with Chris. If you enjoyed what you heard, please jump over to @JosieCoffee and give him a follow. You'll never regret trying coffee from Josie. It's a product I've used for years and will continue to do so. Secondly, if you listen regularly and want to hear more, then please help us out by leaving a star rating and comment, and we can continue to bring more and more episodes. Remember to like or share it with a friend if it reminds you of them, and to leave a review in the section below. Or, if you really found the information valuable, you're welcome to purchase me a scrumptious cup of Make More Podcast juice at buymeacoffee.com/betweenviews. Just wanted to say a second thank you to our supporter MX, who shouted Between Views 3 more coffees recently. In other news, Between Views is looking for collaborators in Instagram, social media, product development, and marketing. If you want to join the team, then please reach out on Instagram. Thanks so much. Finally, if you know someone who deserves to be interviewed or just have some feedback, then send us an email at betweenviewsbv@gmail.com or message us on Instagram. Thanks again, and see you soon. Between Views.